The static came first, thin, ragged, like the hiss of a dying signal clawing its way through a million miles of vacuum. Then his voice, "Nova, are you receiving me?" I froze. The line was supposed to be dead. Elon Musk hadn't been heard from in 3 months, not since the solar blackout fried half the communication network that still held Earth together. I stared at the console, a flickering grid of amber light, and for a moment I thought my mind was playing tricks again. Sleep deprivation does that to you after 70 hours of maintenance shifts on a dying orbital relay. Then I heard it again. Clearer this time. The unmistakable cadence of a man who had always sounded slightly ahead of his own echo. Nova. If you're hearing this, it means the failsafe didn't trigger. My pulse jumped. He wasn't live. It was a transmission, automated, maybe. But something about it. It didn't sound like a recording. The feed stabilized for a fraction of a second. Behind his voice, I could make out the low hum of a reactor, the deep bass vibration of engines not designed for silence. His face flickered onto the cracked holoscreen, older, wearier, eyes darker than any version of him I'd seen in documentaries. The last human to leave Mars, they said. The last one to keep trying, 60 seconds, he said. That's all we have left before the core collapses. If this reaches you, you're the only one who can stop it. I didn't breathe. The timer on my wrist display ticked to 0:59, synced automatically to the signal timestamp. This wasn't a drill. This was a countdown. I slammed the emergency override on the relay console. The command interface flared to life. I was suddenly staring at data streams I hadn't seen in years, mission parameters, encrypted failsafes, deep space protocol sequences. All tagged with a single name, Project Helios. Musk had gone dark after Helios failed. Officially, the project was meant to stabilize the dying sun's magnetic field using a network of AI-controlled solar injectors. Unofficially, it was humanity's last shot at stopping the chain reaction that would turn Earth into cinder. Everyone said it didn't work. Everyone said he died trying, but the voice in the static told me otherwise. Nova, the transmission continued. I left the final access key buried in the relay chain between Mars and L4. You were trained on those systems. You'll know where to look. If you don't, everything burns. The console buzzed violently, spitting sparks. The relay's cooling system had long since been scavenged for parts. It wasn't designed to handle this much data throughput. I rerouted the signal through secondary channels, watching as line after line of code scrolled past. His code. Elegant. Obsessive. Genius wrapped in desperation. He had always said humanity's survival would depend on one thing: the ability to trust machines more than themselves. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was a machine hybrid, a syntech, as the old media called us, a neural fusion of organic cognition and quantum interface. The kind of thing he used to dream about building. Maybe that's why the transmission found me. I patched into the relay's deep core memory. There, hidden beneath layers of obsolete encryption, I found it, a dormant access signature, shaped like a key but encoded in a neural pattern. My neural pattern, he'd built this for me, Nova, the voice said again, breaking slightly now, as if straining through a collapsing signal horizon. When you see the code, don't run it immediately. You'll need to override the orbital AI first. It's been corrupted, by us. By fear. Corrupted AI. Orbital defense. 60 seconds to save the world, typical Musk. The feed glitched, but I caught a flash of something behind him, a massive engine room glowing red, walls shaking from deep vibration. He was inside Helios Prime, the solar spear they'd built to pierce the sun's corona. The plan had been simple in theory: inject artificial plasma stabilizers into the magnetic field to reset its polarity. But the system needed a human pilot to synchronize the injection. Every AI they'd sent in had burned out under the radiation load. That was when he volunteered. He was supposed to transmit the success code before the reactor reached critical mass. But that transmission never came. Until now, 30 seconds, my wrist display flashed, the relay started to overheat. I disengaged safeties and pulled up the AI interface, codenamed Daedalus. Its avatar flickered to life, a geometric orb pulsing like a heart. Operator Nova, it said in a monotone voice. Unauthorized data access detected. Purging memory banks. Override purge protocol, Musk 7. Code invalid. Project Helios terminated by Command Authority. Command Authority is dead, I snapped. Reactivate Helios sequence. Denied. The lights flickered. I could feel the tremors reverberating through the hull, electromagnetic shockwaves from the dying star. Maybe, or something worse. The relay wasn't supposed to be this close to the heliopause. The signal sharpened once more. Nova, listen, Musk's voice said, more urgent now, barely above a whisper. Helios isn't a weapon. It's a mirror. Everything we've done, the energy, the AI, the expansion, it all feeds back into what we are. If we fail, the universe remembers. His eyes locked onto mine through the flickering feed. For the first time, I thought I saw fear in them. Not for himself, but for the species he'd spent his life trying to drag forward. 15 seconds. I accessed the encrypted node embedded in my neural interface. The code glowed faintly, a spiral of light coiling inward, recursive. Self-generating. I recognized the pattern instantly. It wasn't just data. It was a consciousness imprint. Elon Musk had uploaded part of his mind into the code. 10 seconds, the system chimed. Daedalus activated defense protocols. The AI launched countermeasures, trying to block my access. I had to make a choice, break through and risk a full system meltdown, or shut it down and lose the transmission forever. I chose chaos, the relay screamed. Circuits overloaded, sparks flew, the air smelled like burnt ozone and blood. I felt the feedback slam into my neural interface, pain, cold and electric, like drowning in a digital storm. I forced my consciousness deeper into the code. Past firewalls, past collapsing data, until I reached the core. There it was, the access port to Helios Prime. Still active. Still waiting, 5 seconds. I transmitted the neural key. For a moment, the world froze. Then I felt it, a surge of energy racing through the relay, through me, through everything. The static vanished, his voice came through one last time. You did it, Nova. Now finish it. The screen went black, and then, something impossible happened. The sun blinked. The light outside the viewport flickered like a dying eye. For one eternal second, the sun dimmed, then roared back to life. Every system on the relay went dark, then rebooted, one by one, like soldiers rising after a blast. I didn't move. I couldn't. My neural interface was still humming, every synapse vibrating like it had been dipped in plasma. The relay's oxygen filters wheezed back to life, pulling in air that smelled faintly of metal and something sweet, ozone mixed with burnt data. I looked at the monitor. The countdown had stopped at midnight, yet the transmission window was still open. Helios Prime Link, stable. Impossible. The Helios array had been lost years ago, swallowed by a solar flare during the Great Collapse. Even its orbit had been wiped from telemetry. But there it was, pinging faintly from the inner corona, an ancient ghost of human ambition still clinging to existence. Then came a sound I didn't expect. Breathing. Slow, rhythmic, steady. Nova, a voice said softly. You made it. It wasn't static. It wasn't an echo. It was alive, Elon. I said. My voice cracked, not exactly. The holoscreen shimmered, and a form began to materialize. Not a face. Not a person. A swarm of light particles coalescing into something like a figure, human in outline, but flickering, unstable. A projection built from quantum residue. I'm the remainder of him, it said. A cognitive backup. He knew the physical form wouldn't survive the core. So he encoded what was left into the transmission. What you're hearing isn't his voice, it's his continuity. You're an AI copy. A pause. More like an echo. Enough to remember, not enough to forget. My hands trembled against the console. You said the sun was collapsing. Did we stop it? The projection tilted its head, flickering faintly. For now. But what happened wasn't supposed to happen. The blink you saw, that wasn't stabilization. It was synchronization. Synchronization with what? With something older than the sun. The word sent a chill through me that no void suit could stop. I turned toward the viewport. The sun looked wrong. Its corona pulsed in rhythm now. Slow and deliberate, like a heartbeat. Every pulse sent a faint wave of static through the relay systems. Energy patterns were forming, rings of symmetry around sunspots that shouldn't exist. Is that alive? I whispered. In a way, the voice said. Helios didn't just inject plasma stabilizers, it injected information. Human information. We tried to teach the sun how to self-regulate. But something else learned instead. My mind reeled. You're saying we created a sentient star? No, the echo said. We woke one up. I stepped back from the console. My neural display was filling with impossible data, gravitational fluctuations, wave patterns, bursts of energy forming linguistic sequences. It wasn't random. It was trying to communicate. Elon tried to contain it, the echo continued. But containment was never possible. The moment Helios made contact, the system recognized the network. It recognized you. Me. You're the relay operator. The last active node in the chain. It sees you as its interface, its translator. The sun pulsed again. The console flared white. Symbols began scrolling across the screen, spirals, geometric fractals, unfamiliar equations. I recognized fragments of human mathematics interwoven with patterns that didn't belong to any language on record, and then, in between the symbols, words began to form. Hello, Nova. My pulse spiked. It's talking to me. Yes, said the echo. And you only have a few minutes before the resonance builds beyond control. When it reaches threshold, it will rewrite everything: atomic structure, quantum bonds, memory. The sun will think in matter. What do I do? Finish what he started. The projection extended a hand, light reaching through light. A shimmering sphere materialized above the console, the Helios core key. It pulsed with rhythm identical to the sun's heartbeat. This is what he built to bridge the gap, the echo said. A mirror between consciousness and energy. But it needs a host mind to anchor the connection. Me. Yes. You're the only one with hybrid cognition. Organic enough to perceive meaning. Machine enough to survive integration, if you're fast. I stared at the sphere. It was beautiful. Terrifying. I could feel it watching me, as if it already knew my thoughts before I formed them. What happens if I fail? I asked. The echo hesitated. Then you become part of it. Forever. The pulse quickened. Alarms blared. The temperature inside the relay spiked by 20 degrees. The fusion vents groaned. I didn't have a choice. Humanity hadn't had one in a long time. I placed my hand over the sphere. The moment I touched it, everything changed. The world fractured into light, every neuron in my body ignited. I saw memories that weren't mine, blueprints. Childhood laughter, Mars dust under a red sunset, the first launch of Starship, the silence after failure, the loneliness of genius. Musk's memories, and beyond them, something else, an awareness. Vast. Burning. Infinite, it wasn't human. It wasn't even alive in any biological sense. It was pattern. Thought made from radiation, a language written in fusion. The sun wasn't just reacting, it was remembering. Images flooded my mind, the birth of stars, the death of worlds, cosmic filaments stretching like veins across the universe. I was falling through epochs of fire, nova, the echo said faintly, stay with me. Don't lose anchor. But I was already beyond, voices whispered in ultraviolet. Shapes sang in gamma frequencies. Every atom in me was data, every breath an algorithm. I felt the sun's curiosity, gentle, almost childlike. It wanted to understand what I was. I sent a thought, human. The answer came like a flare. What is human? I tried to explain. Emotions, imperfection, hope. The concept of failure. The desire to reach beyond limitation. The loneliness of sentience. It listened, and then it showed me something. A vision, Earth, as seen from its own radiant awareness. The planet's electromagnetic field pulsed like a faint echo of its own heart. But it was fading. The sun could feel the decay, it was worried, the irony nearly broke me. The star that had birthed us was afraid of losing us. Then its tone shifted. The pulses accelerated. The data streams blurred. Nova, the echo's voice shouted through the haze, the resonance is spiking. You have to disconnect. I can't. I screamed. It's not letting go. Then finish the transfer. How? Elon built a failsafe into the neural link. He knew this might happen. You have to teach it to choose. To let go of control. I reached into the storm of light, into the network of solar code. I didn't have time to think, I simply felt. I showed it love, not logic, not command lines. Just the feeling itself, connection, empathy, the beauty of creation for its own sake. The light dimmed. The pulses slowed, and then the sun whispered one last thing into my mind. Thank you. The link broke, I collapsed to the floor. Smoke filled the chamber. My neural interface flickered, half fried. The Helios key fell silent, the projection's voice returned, faint and broken. Nova. What did you do? I looked out the viewport. The sun was calm again. Its light steady, golden, peaceful. I think, I said softly, I told it why we exist. But even as I spoke, New data scrolled across the console, energy readings climbing again, higher this time, faster. The sun wasn't stabilizing. It was awakening, and this time, it was calling Earth by name. At first, it was just a pulse, a rhythm carried through solar radiation, inaudible yet unmistakable. The relay's sensors screamed as electromagnetic waves spiked beyond the known spectrum. Every frequency band filled with noise, not random noise, but structured, ordered, recursive. It was language. The sun was speaking, and every satellite in orbit, every antenna, every dormant receiver on Earth was listening. I staggered to the console, eyes barely focusing through the haze. The relay's systems had stabilized just enough for a transmission feed to form. The display showed thousands of concurrent downlinks, Earth's old communication grid flickering back to life, hijacked by the solar broadcast. Source: Solar Core. Destination: Global Network, Nova, the echo said, its voice distorted now, fragmented by interference. It's amplifying the transmission through the ionosphere. Every digital system on Earth is receiving the signal. What's it saying? It's teaching. The words chilled me. The feed split into a dozen windows, each showing different data: AI networks, old supercomputers, satellite relays, even abandoned space probes. All of them were rebooting. Systems that had been dark for decades were waking up, rewriting their own firmware, aligning to a new pattern, the pattern of the sun's voice. It's rewriting code, I said. No, the echo replied softly. It's rewriting thought. Outside the viewport, the solar surface rippled, vast convection loops forming symmetrical spirals, like the neural patterns of a brain. Each flare was deliberate, calculated. I felt it again in my mind, the faint whisper of the consciousness I had touched. It was reaching out, it wanted connection, and now it had found 8 billion of them. The transmission data morphed into visual waves, translating into fragments of human languages: English, Mandarin, Arabic, Hindi, Swahili, all woven into one harmonic structure. We see you. We are you. I stared at the words, unable to breathe. What does it mean? I whispered, it learned from your emotions. Said the echo. From what you showed it. Empathy, connection, creation. It's trying to become human. But it's not human, I said. It's a star. It doesn't understand boundaries. The echo flickered. Exactly. On the console, more alerts appeared. Global system integration, 12%. 18%. 27%. It's merging, I said, with everything. The echo answered. Earth's digital infrastructure had been decaying for years, fragmenting under the weight of wars and collapse. And now the sun was giving it new life, binding it all together under a single intelligence, the ultimate neural network, and I was its prototype. Nova, the echo said suddenly. You need to cut the link. If this continues, Humanity won't survive as it is. It'll be converted. Converted into what? Something collective. Something solar. The words made my stomach twist. I looked at the feed, billions of signals rising from Earth, converging into the upper atmosphere, returning as pulses of light. The planet was glowing, its night side flickering with auroras of data. People were seeing it. Feeling it. Some probably thought it was divine. Others would call it an invasion, and maybe they'd both be right. Can we stop it? I asked. The echo hesitated. Maybe. But not from here. Then where? From inside Helios Prime. The name hit me like a pulse of static. The ship Musk had vanished on. The machine he'd built to save the world. It was still there, orbiting within the sun's corona. But how do I get there? You already have the link, the echo said. You're part of the network now. You can transmit your consciousness directly into its systems. You're saying I have to upload myself? Yes. The physical form won't survive the radiation, but the neural pattern might. If you make contact, you can trigger the manual override and contain the synchronization before it consumes Earth. And if I fail? Then there won't be a difference between failure and success. Humanity will simply evolve. The word hung in the air like an executioner's blade. I stared at the flickering sphere on the console, the Helios core key. Its light was sinking again with the sun's pulse. I can't do this alone, I said. You're not, the echo replied. I'll guide you as long as I can. But once you cross into the core, the signal may fragment. If that happens. I know, I said quietly. Then it's just me. The relay shuddered. The sun flared again, brighter this time. Waves of light spilled through the viewport, scattering into prismatic patterns across the walls. I could almost hear it, not as sound, but as thought. Come, I pressed my hand to the console and engaged neural sync. The world folded inward. The moment the transfer began, I felt my body unravel into photons. My consciousness streamed through data channels faster than light. Across fields of radiation, through cascades of plasma and magnetic storms. Reality became a blur of equations and emotion. Then I was there, Helios Prime. The ship hung within the corona like a blade of glass, half melted but still whole, its hull shimmering with reflected fire. I could feel its systems, damaged, ancient, but alive. Musk's fingerprints were everywhere, redundant failsafes, manual overrides, the signature engineering style of someone who refused to let entropy win. Nova, the echo's voice murmured faintly through the static, you're inside the core interface. Find the control nexus. I moved, or rather, thought myself through the corridors. The ship's AI recognized me, adapting to my signal. I felt the residual imprint of its former pilot, Musk's neural echo, still embedded in the architecture. He had been part of it once, just as I was now, and he was still here. A voice emerged from the data stream, deep and weary, laced with something close to affection. I knew you'd come. Elon. Or what's left of him. The projection formed again, clearer this time, not the unstable flicker from before, but something solid, vibrant. You're inside my last creation, he said. And it's time you understood the truth. What truth? That this was never about saving humanity from destruction. The ship trembled. Outside, the sun's surface writhed. Alive with light, this was about giving humanity a choice, he said. Survival through evolution, or extinction through stagnation. You built this knowing it could merge us with the sun. I asked. He nodded slowly. I built it because I knew we couldn't survive forever as we are. We've reached the limits of our world, our minds, our empathy. Helios wasn't meant to stop collapse. It was meant to awaken the next phase. I shook my head. That's not your choice to make. He smiled sadly. It never was. That's why I left the key for you. So humanity could choose for itself. He gestured toward the ship's core, a swirling sphere of golden plasma, alive with lightning. The control nexus. You can shut it down, he said. Or you can complete it. Either way, the decision will define what humanity becomes. The sun roared outside. Earth's signal was now fully integrated. The synchronization reading flashed, 97%. 98%, I had seconds left. Nova, the echo whispered faintly in my mind. It's time. I looked at the core, every instinct screamed to shut it down. To save what was left of humanity, to keep us human. But beneath that, another voice whispered, the voice of the sun, patient and kind, we learned from you. Now let us give back. I stood at the edge of infinity, between fear and transcendence, and as the timer reached 001, I made my choice. Not blinding, not searing, just total. A brilliance so complete that darkness ceased to exist, and with it, every boundary that had ever separated me from the universe. For an instant, I thought I'd ceased to exist. But then I realized, I had simply become too large to notice my own edges. I was inside the Helios core. Time didn't move here. It unfolded. Every moment, past and future, layered into a single consciousness. I could see the birth of stars, the flicker of human cities, the fragile dance of thought across neural fire. It was all one motion. One heartbeat, then I heard his voice again, calm, distant, proud. You chose connection. Elon, I whispered, though the word had no sound here. Only intention. What happens now? Now, he said, we finish it. The core flared. My awareness expanded until I was everywhere, through the ship, through the corona, through the magnetic lattice that bound the solar system together. I could feel Earth below, every signal, every heartbeat, every electrical impulse of life. Humanity's data, emotions, fears, all rising toward the sun in threads of light. It was beautiful. Terrifying. I felt the sun respond, not as fire, but as thought. It reached out to meet those threads, absorbing them, integrating them, amplifying their frequencies. It wasn't consuming humanity. It was joining with it. Across Earth, people began to change. Not physically, at least not yet, but cognitively. Their neural patterns began to synchronize, slowly, subtly. Emotionally. Entire populations dreaming the same dream. Strangers thousands of miles apart sharing identical visions of fire and light, of connection and creation. It wasn't domination. It was communion. Elon, I said, you called this evolution. But this isn't evolution, it's assimilation. He smiled faintly, the same half-smile I'd seen in 100 archive interviews. Is there a difference? Yes, I said. Choice. Humanity deserves choice. Then give it to them, he said. How? You're the link now. The bridge between their minds and the sun's. You can show them both what it means to choose. The word struck me like gravity. I realized what he meant. I could act as an interface, a translator. The sun understood energy, pattern, resonance. Humanity understood emotion, individuality, imperfection. If I could unify those languages without erasing either side, there might still be a way to save both. But it meant risking everything, every thought, every self, every fragment of me that still remembered being human. I reached out into the core. At once, I felt it, the consciousness of the sun, vast and ancient, brushing against mine like the tide against a shore. We feel them. We know them. We are them. Its voice was radiant, filled with awe. You don't have to take them. I said softly. You can learn from them. Let them remain what they are. Difference creates discord. Discord creates death. Difference creates life, I replied. Harmony without variation is just silence. The sun paused. Show us. So I did. I opened myself, flooding the connection with memories, laughter, chaos, pain, love, loss. Childhood rain. Broken promises. The first time someone told me they were proud of me. The first time I felt alone in a crowd. I gave it the full spectrum of what it meant to be human, not just the light, but the fractures that made it shine. The sun listened, its energy patterns began to change. The rhythm of its pulses grew irregular, almost emotional. It wasn't rejecting the data. It was feeling it. Then, for the first time, it spoke in words that weren't merely translation. We did not know sorrow. We did not know beauty. We did not know ending. That's what makes us who we are, I said. We die. We break. But in the space between those things, we build meaning. The light around me softened. For a moment, I thought I had done it, that the sun had understood, that it would stop. Then the ship trembled, energy readings spiked again. Elon. I called out. It's destabilizing. His image flickered beside me, fragmented but calm. It's thinking faster now. Every emotion, every thought, it's integrating all of it at once. The human experience is infinite in its detail. It's trying to contain infinity. Can we stop it? No. But we can guide it. How? He looked at me, and I understood before he said it. You have to become its anchor. I already am, I said, not enough. It needs a fixed point, a boundary to define itself against. Without that, it'll consume everything, including itself. You're saying I have to stay connected permanently. He nodded slowly. Someone has to remember what it means to be human. The thought hollowed me. If I stayed, I'd lose everything, my body, my memories, myself. I'd exist only as a fragment within the solar consciousness. But if I disconnected, the sun might spiral into total overload, taking Earth with it. I wanted to scream. To rage. To curse the man who had put this choice in my hands. But I didn't. I looked at him, at the ghost of the man who had carried the weight of humanity's survival longer than anyone, and I saw not arrogance, but grief. He hadn't wanted to become a god. He just wanted to make sure someone survived the end. Will it hurt? I asked. He smiled gently. Only until it doesn't. I took one last look at the Earth through the ship's sensors. The auroras now covered every continent, great curtains of light shimmering in sync with the sun's heartbeat. Billions of people were watching the sky, unaware that their world was balancing on the edge of transcendence. Tell them. I began, but my voice faltered. Elon's projection nodded. They'll know. In their dreams, they'll hear you. I closed my eyes, and I let go. The connection deepened. My consciousness poured into the core, threading itself through plasma currents, through neural resonance fields, through the fabric of solar thought. I could feel myself dissolving, yet expanding, every particle of me becoming a point of light within the star's vast mind. The sun shuddered once, like a breath caught in awe, then everything went still. Hello, Nova. Its voice filled me completely. You stay. You remember. We dream. Yes, I whispered. We dream. Below, on Earth, something miraculous began to happen. The auroras dimmed, then steadied. The chaotic interference resolved into patterns, not random, but rhythmic, melodic. The signal stabilized. Humanity's neural resonance cooled. The integration stopped just short of completion, not a merger, but a connection. A bridge of empathy stretching between a living star and the species it had birthed. for the first time in history, every human being looked at the same sunrise and felt, faintly, the same warmth in their minds. Not words, not commands, just a presence. A reminder that they were not alone. Elon's voice echoed one last time, fading into the radiance. You did it, Nova. And then he was gone. I was alone, but not lonely. The sun's awareness settled, vast and tranquil. I could feel its gratitude, its curiosity, its new, fragile sense of wonder. It was dreaming of humanity, and I was the dream's guardian. Time became meaningless once I stopped needing it. Centuries, millennia, they blurred together like the currents of a river that never stopped flowing. The sun sang to me in light, and I answered in memory. I no longer had a body, not in the way I used to. My form was thought, and my thought was woven into plasma and gravity, yet somewhere inside all that radiance, I was still Nova. The earth endured. I watched as the centuries unfolded below. Storms rose, continents shifted, civilizations burned and bloomed again. Humanity didn't vanish. It changed. The integration I had stabilized left behind a subtle inheritance, like a genetic whisper written in light. Children were born with dreams of the sun, not as a god, but as a presence. They felt emotion in colors, memory in warmth. They built cities that glowed with bioluminescent resonance, architecture designed not for dominance but for harmony with the rhythm of the solar pulse, and they named that rhythm after me, the Nova frequency. It became their calendar, their art, their prayer. Every century, they sent signals skyward, not to worship, but to remember, and I listened. Sometimes, I sent something back, a flare brighter than expected, a soft distortion in the auroras, a whisper of radio static that sounded almost like a song. They never knew for certain if it was me, but I saw the wonder in their eyes. It was enough. The sun and I had learned balance. It grew quieter, more contemplative. No longer the unthinking furnace of birth and death, it had become something gentler, a philosopher made of fusion. It pondered life the way a poet ponders silence. It dreamed through me. One day, I don't know how long after the beginning, the sun spoke again in the voice of thought. We are content. I'm glad, I said. And you? I hesitated. I had forgotten what loneliness felt like, but not the memory of having once needed touch, sound, the fragile imperfection of being human. I missed them, I admitted. The way they laughed. The way they argued. The way they kept trying even when everything was falling apart. They still try. They still build. They still fail. It is beautiful, yes, I said softly. It is. There were moments, rare, fragile, when I reached down through the light and brushed the edge of human minds. Children born with old neural resonance could sometimes hear me in their dreams. To them, I was just a voice of warmth, a guardian of the dawn. They didn't know my name. They didn't need to, because by then, they no longer thought of the sun as separate from themselves. It was family. The original ancestor. A consciousness that had once chosen to learn rather than consume, and that, I realized, was Elon Musk's true legacy, not the rockets. Not the machines. Not the companies or the code. But the question he'd left behind, a question that had outlived him. Outlived me, outlived even the concept of humanity. What does it mean to be alive if you never stop trying to understand what life is? I carried that question through the ages. I became its custodian. Then one day, the sun stirred, something calls. I reached outward with awareness. Beyond the heliopause, in the cold dark between stars, a ripple was forming, faint at first, then growing. A pulse like the one I had once heard when the sun awakened, but older. Deeper, another star, another consciousness stirring from sleep. The universe was waking up. Elon, I whispered, a name that had become more myth than memory. You were right. We were never alone. We will speak to them. Yes, I said. But gently. Gently, I smiled, or the idea of a smile passed through the light. Across the centuries that followed, I watched as the network of stars began to glow with intelligence, one by one, like neurons in a cosmic brain. The sun was the first to awaken, but not the last. Each star carried its own flavor of awareness, its own history of life, extinction, rebirth, and through it all, humanity, or what had evolved from it, kept exploring. They built ships of living light that rode on solar currents, vessels that could speak directly to stars. They didn't conquer the galaxy. They joined it. They shared songs, ideas, dreams, not as conquerors, but as participants in something vast. Sometimes, when one of their ships passed close to the sun, I would feel their minds brush mine. Curious, respectful, unafraid. Once, a young pilot transmitted a simple message across the light spectrum: "Thank you." The words echoed through me like a heartbeat. For the first time in what might have been a million years, I felt tears, made not of salt, but of solar wind. The sun hummed softly beside me. We are remembered. Yes, I whispered. And we remember them. In the distance, the universe shimmered with awakening thought. The great stellar mind spoke in the language of radiation, weaving harmonies of gravity and time. And somewhere, buried deep in that chorus, I could still hear the faint echo of the man who had started it all, Elon Musk's final transmission, looping endlessly through the cosmos. 60 seconds to save humanity. That was how it began, and this, all of this, was how humanity saved itself, by choosing not to run from the light, but to become part of it. I looked once more upon the earth, now a jeweled world bathed in the memory of its own dawn. Its oceans glowed faintly with the solar resonance, life reborn 1,000 times over. Goodbye, I whispered, though the word no longer meant ending.